Hey everyone, my name is Dave Jagger and I'm one of the counselors here at Belmont University Counseling Services, and I'm really glad that you're joining me today. We are kicking off some of our own self-paced groups that are going to be totally available online. And so instead of having to come to our office for a group meeting once a week or every other week, or waiting for some live group to meet online, these groups are going to be offered at whatever pace that you'd like to do them. And so you can do them at 2 a.m. Or at 3 in the afternoon from your phone, from back home, wherever you are. You can have access to these, being that they're housed on Blackboard. And so we're really excited that think this could be a really great tool for you to get what you need when you need it and at the time and schedule that works best for you. And so this group that I'm going to be kicking off today and kind of heading up the creation of is a group around the concept of self-compassion. And I would just really encourage you, as you think about joining this group and going through the process and the modules for this group, just to start thinking about how you can do that in a way. I know if you're like me, you probably want to just blow through this in an afternoon and get the tools and take what you want and move from there. But I'd encourage you as much as possible to take this at a pace where you can take a module, you can listen to it, you can go through and pause it at times and practice some of the things, and even try to practice those for the next few days after you watch one of the videos, and think about how that shows up or journal about how that shows up, and really be intentional about navigating this group in a way that not only are you just kind of taking in the information, but you're getting to like experientially and like curiously like see how that's showing up in your life and where there's some little but really important significant changes that you can make. So think about as you're doing this, what pace works good for you and how to incorporate this in a way where you can practice it in your day-to-day life. I wanted to, besides introducing this group, I also want to introduce you to the person who kind of founded and started a lot of this movement around the topic of self-compassion. So her name is Dr. Kristin Neff. Right now, she works at the University of Texas in Austin, and has done a lot of research around self-compassion and the practice of self-compassion and how that affects us as humans. Her big book on the topic is just called Self-Compassion. You can find it on Amazon or on Audible or any place that you would find a book. And it's really a wonderful tool. I often say to the groups that not only is it a wonderful tool, it could be a life-changing tool. The book is so good and introduces so many things to think about as you enter into the world of self-compassion. And so wanted to make sure that I introduced her, as she's the one who's really informed a lot of the ways that we do this group and a lot of the concepts that we're going to be presenting in here. And so today I wanted to start this group off. This is kind of an intro video, but I wanted to kind of prompt you with a question. And that question is, does the way that we treat ourselves push us closer to what we want and the goals that we want to get to, or does it take us further away from those? Does it take us closer towards like shutting down and checking out, or closer towards like the goal and pushing through and figuring out what we're working on? And so one of the analogies that I think about often in my own life is a few years back, I was on YouTube and someone had posted a video and it was like a bunch of 5-year-old kids playing soccer, right? And so when you think about 5-year-old kids playing soccer, it's probably like their first or second year of playing soccer. They're just getting introduced to the sport. And what I was watching in this one video particularly was this thing that played out. And what played out was one of the young kids was kind of in front of the goal, and just so happens that like the play moved in a way where that kid was pretty much wide open, and one of the other players on his team kicked the ball across there, and it was right in front of the goal, right there for him, and had like a perfect chance to get a goal. And the kid kind of swung and just ticked the ball, and it kind of trickled off to the side, and he didn't score a goal. And what I watched in this video is I watched this parent just like berate this kid, like, what were you thinking? I can't believe you like didn't just kick that in. It was wide open. You should have just scored a goal, and just berated this person and really like dug their heels in and made this kid just, I think, feel terrible, right? And then I proceeded to see other videos through the years of, maybe another experience of like a kid playing soccer, and you can almost picture that same scenario playing out with maybe another team, and a kid having a perfect shot at a wide open goal and all that stuff at 5 years old. And you can picture that same thing happening, him kind of like just ticking the ball and the ball kind of just trickling off to the side and missing the goal. And you can see a parent maybe or a coach come over and say like, oh, buddy, like, I totally see what you were trying to do there. And man, when you're out there and all that's happening so fast, it's really hard to get it coordinated. So let's get back out there and let's finish this game and let's do our best and keep trying and keep swinging, and we're going to figure it out. And maybe next week in practice, we can try that a couple times and we're going to get to the bottom of it and we're going to figure it out, because I know that you have this potential and this capability inside of you, and I know that you can do it. And when you think about those two scenarios, one of the questions that I often ask myself and I ask clients is, which one of those kids do you think is going to want to go back out there that afternoon and keep playing soccer? Which one of those kids do you think is going to want to come back and play next week or show up at practice and play with their friends and things like that in the next week or 2 weeks or months? And which one of those kids do you think is going to want to play soccer when they're 15 and 16, 10, 11, 12 years down the line, and have a love for soccer and be successful at it? And which one of those kids, if like that same opportunity presented itself in the same game later on, do you think is going to have a better shot of doing better and accomplishing the goal that they would have the next time? And I think like the unanimous answer that I get from people is that the second kid would, right? Like the kid who had like support and encouragement and was made to feel like, yeah, that happens to all of us. You're normal. And like, you get to figure that out, would have a better shot at that, right? But what's also really shocking to me is most of the time when I talk to people, they would say that their internal voice sounds a lot like the first coach, right? Like when we fail a test or we get broken up with or we go through a hard day, it's like, what were you thinking? Why didn't you figure that out? How could you let that happen? And like, you should have been paying more attention, and just this like self-berating, right? And so the question that I go back to, what I asked before I shared that story about soccer, is, does the way that we treat ourselves push us closer to our goals or further away? When we beat ourselves up over a hard test like that and berate ourselves, does that make it a better chance of us doing good on the next test? Or does it take us further from that? Does it help us study better or worse? When we get broke up with and we just come raining down blows on ourselves about how we handled that situation, does it make it feel like we can go on the next date and have a good experience? Or does it feel like we're going to be pretty defeated? And so I think about that oftentimes when we are so critical on ourselves, we put ourselves into a state that's so defeated, it almost mimics depression, right? We want to isolate. We want to hide. It's hard to focus. It's hard to engage. It's hard to want to try again and to be hopeful about things. We feel lethargic. We feel tired. We feel overwhelmed and defeated, right? It's really hard to keep engaged and start pushing in the direction that we want to go when we come down really hard on ourselves. And so the idea is with self-compassion isn't that we're just always nice to ourselves, let us off the hook completely, do whatever we want willy-nilly. But the idea is that we can be kind to ourselves so that we put ourselves not in that depressive state, but in a state that starts to push us and motivate us so that we can figure it out next time, right? Like, oh man, like that test didn't go how I wanted it to. But like this week, let's focus on a couple of things. Let's keep trying this and let's get to the bottom of it and figure it out. Like everyone has a tough week. Everyone has a hard test. Everyone gets broke up with. So let's like get to the bottom of this and let's do some of the work that we feel like is really important so we can push ourselves closer to that instead of further away. So a couple of things I want to list before we really dive into the group, and as I wrap this video today and thinking about some things, is some of the benefits of self-compassion. So there's been a lot of research that's gone into self-compassion, and a couple of the big benefits are, number one, an increase in happiness and self-satisfaction. Number two, we feel a lot more optimistic in life, that we can do things, that we're capable of things, that we're worthy of things. There's a lot more of a positive affect in our experience and in our personalities. We notice that we can gain a little bit more wisdom, which I'll talk about here a little bit in a moment. We gain some more personal initiative and some drive. We find that we get more curious and we want to explore a bit more. We find that we are a little bit more agreeable with others and even with ourselves. We have a higher self-awareness or conscientiousness of those around us. We notice that we get increases in extroversion, which I know might seem like a wild one there, but sometimes we become a little bit more extroverted when we're kind to ourselves. We have warmer body temperatures, which is positive. It means our blood flow is increasing and doing what it's supposed to do. We have higher levels of immunity to different illnesses because, again, our blood flow and our bodies are working how they should, and the tension is getting released. We have a better recall of information. We are able to focus for longer periods of time, and the list goes on. But these are a few of the benefits of being kind to ourselves. And so today's video, I just wanted to introduce this group and kind of how to navigate it. And I would love if you could take some time in between this one and the next module that you watch, and just maybe pull out your journal and start thinking about that question that I presented earlier. Does the way that I'm treating myself push me closer to what I want or further away? Does the way that I treat myself oftentimes make me want to shut down or check out? Or does it push me towards figuring things out and getting to the bottom of it and granting myself patience and kindness on the journey? And just thinking about how we are treating ourselves and how that shows up and seeing if that's actually working for us. And so just being curious about that. So anyways, again, I'm Dave. And the next one, I'm going to do a little bit of an intro on self-compassion and some of the big concepts that we're going to cover in this group. But hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining me.